Hey everyone, I'm Chris Revill, and let's rock and roll. Hey everyone, I'm Chris Revill, host of Let's Chat with Chris Revill, and welcome to tonight's Punk Rock Filmmakers Roundtable. Tonight's roundtable will be a discussion with 4 punk rock documentary filmmakers sharing their journey of the process of documentary filmmaking. I'll be your host this evening. We will introduce you to our panelists, and we'll share some of the trailers for their work momentarily. We will be having a Q&A portion after the roundtable, so please direct all of your questions, your comments to the Let's Chat with Chris Revill Facebook or YouTube page. The wonderful Chris Ball is our behind-the-scenes guy tonight, so thank you, Chris Ball. He's being honored in our chat room, so feel free to keep hitting up those comments. And do us a huge favor while you're at it. Tweet, take some pictures of this, make us look silly, share it around, share it on the social media while you have it up. And we're going to just, it'll be great. Now we're going to bring on our filmmakers on. First, we have Jon Nix, director of Beyond Barricades.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, John. Excellent. Then next we have Scott Crawford, the director of Salad Days and Cream Doc. Hey, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Next up, Taylor Morden, director of Picking Up Ska in the 90s and The Blockbuster. Hey, Taylor.
Hey.
And finally, we have Shaun M Colon, director of A Fat Wreck and the upcoming podcast documentary Age of Audio. Shaun, how are you, buddy?
I am here.
Excellent. I can't thank you enough for all of you, for your time, for your work, for what you've done to highlight the works that would have definitely, let's be honest, a lot of these things may not have been seen anywhere else. So from the bottom of my heart and anyone listening and watching, hearing this, thank you so much. So the reason we're here today, that we put this together, the role of the documentary filmmaker is to act as the avatar for the audience and show us the stories that have otherwise been overlooked. With the popularity of streaming services and crowdfunding, it is safe to say that we are in the golden age of documentaries right now. Tonight, we are here in the spirit of punk rock to celebrate these 4 filmmakers who've shared their stories about their communities that we all love so much and lift each other up. Our panelist, Jon Nix, is actually having his premiere tomorrow, so we're all here definitely to rally up for Jon for Beyond Barricades. That is premiering on antiflag.beeps.com. Woo! Yeah, Jon. There are tickets available. Please get them. I know for that you can get some. You can rent it to watch it live, and there's also a Q&A and a moderating panel that you have doing afterwards. So antiflag.beeps.com. Make sure you support them. And Jon. So let's first, before we do anything, Jon, let's see the trailer for Beyond Barricades.
I was just blown away by the unapologetic political ferocity of the show.
Not a huge amount of American bands that have such a strong political content in their music.
You're gonna die for your government, die for your country, that shit!
I wanted to name the band Anti-Flag because every time corrupt politicians want to start a war, they pull out the flag.
I'm sure all of them never thought they'd be doing this for a living.
You've got Pat, who is personally really on the front lines of political activism. And then you have Chris, number 1, who is the strong, silent type. And number 2 is, of course, the fiery, leapfrogging punk presence. And then Justin, who is the heart and soul of the band.
It was the first time that I realized that someone from our town could make songs that people would care about.
They're always on tour. For 20 years, they've been on tour.
It could go tragically wrong at any moment.
The stress of going on tour every year becomes more than most relationships can handle. And then you come home and they're like, no, a lot of shit has happened and you haven't been here for it.
It turned into, we have reach and power. We should care about more. We should be grandiose. We have a message. Listen to it.
I want to write songs and talk to people who are interested in activism and politics and think that the world can be different than it is right now. If that's not your thing, go away. Get the fuck out.
This is where I want to be. This is what I want to do.
1, 2, 3!
Oh my god! I for one, I've seen that movie. I've gotten to see it already, and it's really fucking good. You knocked it out of the park. So, John, first question for you actually is like, what was your relationship to the subject matter of Anti-Flag prior to making Beyond Barricades?
I didn't know them personally at all. I knew them through a friend, Chris Stowe, who I met in Cleveland when he lived here, but now he's the label manager for AF Records. And so that's how I got into it. I mean, I always knew about them. You know, I bought a couple of their CDs in high school, and I always kind of had, a ton of respect for what they did and their message. I was always pretty politically active. But like, they were never one of my like big bands. But then once we got the opportunity to do this, like Stowe basically offered us like a giant like storage tub full of tapes, like VHSs and mini DV tapes, and was like, do you think you can make something out of this? And once we started reviewing the footage, we definitely could see that there would be like a good story there. And so I dove back in, and especially like there's a middle run of records in like the center of their career that like I really connected to once I like re-examined them with like a more active eye, like looking for like if there was a story there or not.
Oh, that's wonderful. And so you said Cleveland, so you're from the Ohio area?
Yeah. We're like our production company's based out of Cleveland, Ohio.
And so you grew up in the Ohio scene?
Yes. Yeah. I grew up in Florida, but I didn't really go to shows until I moved to Ohio.
Oh, nice. Excellent. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. So next up, we got Scott Crawford with, we're going to run the trailer for Salad Days.
Oh, can I just...
I had heroes that I would get nervous around, you know? Like I know that Ian is a normal dude, or HR or whatever. They're just normal dudes. Those fucking people changed my life.
DC is a small city of 400, 500,000 people. The industry is government.
So the thing about Washington is that it's a petri dish for great ideas. They may not be sustainable, but you can always grow something here because nobody's looking.
We're proud as hell of the fact that what's coming out of this town is good. When you think about, what kind of a town Washington, D.C. was at that point, that was kind of a remarkable thing. And we knew it. Everyone knew it.
Just brilliant, energetic, creative people. And no one seems intent on having a career of any kind.
Oh, we can watch it twice.
Sure. Awesome. Oh, so, hey, Scott, man, thank you so much for being here as well. Kind of the same kind of question, just like, what was your relationship to that scene prior to this film?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to say that the Anti-Flag doc looks amazing. I'm such a big fan of that band, and I know Justin. And Justin used to write for me when I did a magazine. He used to write a column for me. It was a political column. So yeah, I love that band. So kudos to you. But as far as Salad Days, yeah, I mean that was like my coming of age. I mean, that was the 80s. I started going to shows late 83, 84. So I was, well, I'm not going to tell you how old I was, but I was very young. And had a long. My mother gave me a long leash, and I was able to go and sort of see this stuff up close, and it changed my life. So it's something that's informed my life in so many ways. I'm still that same kid that I was
at 12, and still working on that. I got it. It's not always cool to be that 12-year-old when you're my age, but
he didn't even say his age. That's how old he is.
Have you noticed that? I sort of danced
You're like
around
when
that.
you're
my age,
as old as I am, whatever that may be, that particular age, what it may be. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
So yeah, it was originally like started. I had I'd done magazines. I did a fanzine when I was a kid. I did that for almost 4 years, and it was a very sort of DC centric fanzine at the time. And then it went beyond that, and I was interviewing Husker Du and Dead Kennedys and Toxic Reasons and you name it. Whatever was going on.
Those small bands.
What's that?
Those small little bands.
Yeah, those small little bands that no one cared about. And so I was just a little kid going up with like the little recorder going, "Hey, can I record you?" And anyway, all that stuff kind of like just went on the back burner for 20 years. And then I was doing this magazine, and 2008, the magazine went under, just like a ton of other magazines in 2008. I don't know if anyone remembers. But Vibe, Spin, me, and anyway, so I started to think about a book, and I thought, this would make a hell of a book because it's kind of a coming of age story. Yeah, because I'm literally coming of age I went from seeing Void to seeing Fugazi. So I saw Void in the early 80s, and then seeing Fugazi, or actually playing in a band and opening for Fugazi by the end of the 80s. So it was really this, arc that was kind of nice. And then I realized, well, writing a book doesn't do the music justice, because you're leaving out the music, and that's the best part. It's one of the best parts. So that's when I, considered how to tell the story. And my old friend Jim Saw, who I had been friends with since a kid when I was doing the zine, because he was a photographer, I approached him and said, "Hey man, this story needs to be told." And I was shocked that it hadn't been told yet, and long story short, it took us about 3.5 years to do it. And then it just took on a life of its own. So I'm really proud of it.
I think it's safe to say, and I'm sure everyone on the panel would agree, that it's kind of become the gold standard of like that era for docs. For a while, it was but yeah, and it seems to be the one, because you hear most of the people as like the go-to of our community to reference. So,
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot. I appreciate that.
I'm a huge fan of podcasts. Oh, Shaun, what's up, bud?
No, I gotta say this. As you're telling that story, I don't know if any Judd Apatow fans. We got any Judd Apatow fans in the room? Anyone?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I know what you're thinking.
All right. You're like the Judd Apatow of DC. You're like the Judd Apatow of DC hardcore. He like what he did with comedy. He went and just called all this. He's like, I'm doing an interview, and then he did all that, and then he later on started making stuff about it, and So you're like you're like the Judd Apatow of DC hardcore.
I just didn't. I guess when you're that young, you're fearless to an extent. So I didn't have any problem calling, Ian MacKay or Alec Mackay or any of these people, and just going, hey, I'm this guy, I'm this little kid, and I'm doing this thing. Can you do an interview? And you got to remember, that was 35 years ago. So at that point, when you're when anyone is asking to do an interview with you, when you think no one else is paying attention, I think they were all wonderful with their time and very patient with me, because I was asking some of the world's dumbest questions. So I'm still very thankful.
What was the dumbest question you asked? What was the dumbest question you asked?
I don't know how much time do you have?
All night?
Well, I think we have about an hour, as far as I know.
No, I would just ask things like, do you skate? Just like really it's just it's mortifying to talk about. Just do you skate? What?
I know that's why I talk about it. I want to make you feel real uncomfortable.
Well, I'm already there. Do you like straight edge? Just horrible stuff, But and so when I approached him all those years later, I think there was a certain, I don't know. I think with DC, I don't know about, I can't speak for the rest of the country, but DC is very, I don't know if it's just the DNA of the politics or the sort of just general distrust of people. But I do think that helped in making the film, knowing that, being able to say, hey, I remember that. And then, oh, yeah, and I had stayed friends, with, a lot of the people in the films I was still friends with. I mean, we would still hang out,
Yeah.
It wasn't that hard.
So you had street cred. You had street cred.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, whatever.
You're you were around when it was happening. You weren't you were actually there when it was happening. I mean, you pop up in the documentary as a little kid a few times.
Yeah, well,
I guess for a good section, but
that was sort of for context, just to let folks know, who is this guy and why does this guy think he can make a film about DC punk rock? I think that having that relationship with those folks, and if I had just been a complete outsider, I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure if I would have gotten the same kind of not just access, but just honesty that I got, because I think DC in particular is very, close to the vest. Mm-hmm. We're not going to divulge too much. We're going to just, I feel very lucky that I was able to get the kind of access and kind of answers and responses that I got. I watched it, so anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. If anyone, obviously, everyone should go watch these if you haven't. So going from Anti-Flag to the DC scene, let's go to the next national progression to Taylor, who made a documentary about ska. Pick it up,
of course.
Pick it up, ska in the 90s.
I feel like that's real. You got because of Operation Ivy. Operation Ivy's around that same time. There's a little bit of an overlap with the DC hardcore time frame when that was happening, late 80s. Over on the West Coast, you got some of the early stages of some of that kind of ska music, like punk ska, kind of starting to come together.
Absolutely.
That's why you're here, punk rock. That's how it connects. That's why the ska guy can stay.
So let's run that trailer so people can see what we're talking about, and then they can.
And now the curtain has gone up on another unique attraction, ska music.
Pick it up. Back then, it was like the people that liked the music loved the music.
We got lucky. We were in the right place at the right time. Holy shit.
Ska music? Do you know anything about ska music?
Ska music? Never heard of it.
This is so different and so weird, and my parents are gonna hate it. Anything goes.
I remember just going, what the f***? What is this?
Wow, there's a music out there where it just makes me feel positive, it makes me feel good.
If I could define a music for the mid-90s, it was ska punk.
The world was ready for fun music. Everything ska was moving off the shelf.
This is bigger than our little thing. This is something next level.
All of a sudden, nu metal was cool, and ska is not cool. Like 99, it was like, nobody went to ska shows.
This is terrible.
The way it exploded is the way it died. It was like one day it was all there, then it was gone.
The great thing about ska is that, like punk rock, there's always going to be a subculture for what we do.
Ska equates to unity to me.
That's what I loved about it, because you had black, white, Mexican, Asian. Nobody was against anyone for that moment in time. Man, I'll tell you, music needs more of that. Music needs more of that. This world needs more of that.
Pick it up, ska in the 90s.
Clever and energetic. I don't think I could keep up with them.
That's good music, though.
Toe tapping.
Oh, Taylor, man, I'm sure you guys all have the same thing where that trailer alone just made me start skanking here in my chair. It's like, man.
I started skanking, but I didn't want to break a hip.
So Taylor, like, what's your relationship to ska?
He's a punk of a certain age.
I'm a ska fan and I'm a ska musician. I've played in ska bands off and on since the late 90s. Kind of owe most of my best friendships in life to ska music. You know, I was a band geek before that, so it kind of brought me out into the world, and I met a bunch of cool people, got to tour all over the world and do really cool stuff, and then kind of fell out of the ska scene for a while in the early 2000s, and then started playing again actually in Washington, D.C. around 2010, and got back into ska. Like, I don't know, not a lot, but it was a cool scene there. And it was meeting people who shared that, like, this never went away. This is a really cool thing. And, you know, just, it's still this really important musical genre to me. It's really like a huge part of my life. And then I became a filmmaker years later. I started with a not very ska documentary, and then this was my second go at it.
What was the name of the band in DC?
It was a band called The Shifters.
The Shifters. Okay.
Yeah, it was like a rock steady trad ska kind of band. We played like the Blue Beat nights in Adams Morgan a lot.
Right. Yep. Did you ever play like Black Cat or any of them? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, we played 930 with the Boss Tones.
Oh, nice. Thanks for calling me, but yeah, I would have been there.
You were invited. I mean, where were you? It was, let's see, 2013. It was a Wednesday.
8 years ago.
Yeah. Not sure. Can't recall, but yeah, I bet that was a hell of a show.
It was.
Yeah. No, that's great. I've seen the Boss Tones a bunch of times. And that movie, now it's one more movie I've got to go see. I remember seeing Bad Manners, you know, one of my favorite bands in the 80s. And I saw them probably in 1985 maybe, and I'll never forget. I literally knew every lyric to every song. And Fatty Bloodbuster, you know, was it Fatty Bloodbuster? Is that his name? Fatty?
Buster Bloodvessel?
Thank you. Okay. He grabbed the drumstick from the drummer, and when it was all over, he handed it to me. And, you know, just as sort of an acknowledgement, like, this little dorky kid knows who we are. And do you remember did you ever see Bad Manners?
No.
Okay.
A little bit before my time.
Okay, gotcha. Well, the keyboardist he had a drooling problem, and so there was a towel that he kept at the end of his. It was like on the side of his keyboard, and as he would play, he would get so into it that he would drool. It was like a dog, and he would just clean himself off and keep playing. But by the end of the set, there may have been several towels.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So, but no, that looks like a great movie, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really liked it. I'm generally not a ska fan. Like I really enjoy it live. I've incidentally seen Less Than Jake like 3 times by accident. But yeah, no, I really liked it. I was really impressed with like.
I understand. I've seen a lot of bands by accident.
They were always just opening for bands that I really liked. And I'm just like, oh, I guess I'm going to see Less Than Jake again. All right. But yeah, no, I thought it was really something cool. I think the way you managed to like balance how many interviews are going on in there, and then the animation, like everything's great. I was really impressed.
It's definitely got too many people in it, and
it's got a lot.
Figured it out as we went along, but then
it's like a ska band. It's like a
ska band. It's got too many people.
No, but that's exactly like a ska band.
Ska
band has like way too many people in it. It's like a metaphor for ska bands.
And I've always
did exactly what you're supposed to do.
I've always loved the idea of a ska documentary because there's such a rich history there, and you've got it's also the story of race as well, and so that's such a great potential. The narrative there is huge, and you can go any number of directions. And from that trailer, it looks like certainly like that you nailed it. So anyway.
I can confirm it. You did nail it, in fact, and it was wonderful. Like a lot of all your films, like by the end of it, by the end of it, it just really, you felt good. I somehow like a good documentary should introduce you to something you might know nothing about or something about. I definitely feel like I learned a lot, but I felt happy by the end of it. And I found your Spotify playlist and so I was listening to that all day and kind of redigging through some old ska records that I could find. Again, thank you for coming on. So next, last but not least, we're going to introduce our buddy Shaun M Colon, the director of A Fat Wreck and the future documentary Age of Audio. Let's see the Fat Wreck.
Future documentary. Yeah. That's a nice way of saying that.
Wearing fucking Argyle pants and a mohawk. Who the fuck has a mohawk anymore? That dude.
My Fat Mike. I play NoFX.
In the very beginning, NoFX was not good.
When my ex-wife and I, Erin, first started Fat Records,
we had no idea what the fuck we were doing. Like, none.
It was me and her in an apartment, and a fax machine, and a closet.
I went to school for creative writing. Mike majored in philosophy. Like, I don't know how to fucking run a record label.
It just so happened the first 4 or 5 bands I signed were really good. And everybody sold a lot of records. Oh, Fat Mike started a label, Fat Records. How ingenious.
It's the only record label that's ever paid me. And that's awesome.
It was just like the most ramped up partying ever, but it probably took like 30 years off of my life.
Yeah, Propaganda talked shit about me in a song.
I don't know, sometimes you don't think too much about something, You're just jamming, making the song.
I'm lucky to have these bands on my label.
It's kind of silly to say, but like I learned shit from reading good riddance lyrics.
You just can't even, I got look at Goosebumps. I'm not kidding, there's Goosebumps.
Fat Records is more than just a label that's putting out records. It's an ethics. When someone says it's not personal, it's business, fuck you. It's a lifestyle. When I sign a new band, we end up hanging out a lot and drinking a lot and doing a lot of drugs together. It's a family. It's about chosen families.
This is our family. Fat Records needs us.
Like fucking moms and dads and brothers and sisters.
Maybe it was like a family, but to me it appeared more like a mafia.
Lost in a sea of combat boots. Plus some bastard that wasted youth. When did punk rock become so safe? When did the sea become a joke? The kids who used to live for beer and speed. I want their fun to come.
It's the most melodic and the most rockin' and the most fun. Played by the coolest people.
At the end of the longest line. That's where I will always be. At the end of the longest line.
It's not like one thing
that you could just say like that's Fat Wreck-Gar's legacy. But if there was, I don't know what it would be.
Oh, Shaun, same thing. I watched that trailer. Just makes me want to start like throwing down in the pit. So, what was your relationship to Fat Wreck prior to making this film? Hey, Shaun, you are on mute. Okay, I think we're having a couple of.
Shaun's not here, man.
There he is.
Say that one more time.
Hey, so Shaun, I've seen your film. Huge fan as well.
Say that one more time.
So what was your relationship to a Fat Wreck prior to making this flick?
I had a couple small things. I had a studio that I had a few years prior to filming the movie. I had invited Joey Cape of Lagwagon fame to our studio that we had in Dallas here, and he accepted and came and recorded we recorded a song with him for free. And he was in my just kind of like someone that I had met and knew, but I didn't talk to him very often. And I was Fat Records from since I was like 13 or 14, probably 14, I guess, maybe 15. I'd say somewhere in like 15, 16 age, when you start getting into music. And I mean, my whole thought process was that I think this is around the time like a bunch of punk rock docs were hitting Netflix, like A Band Called Death, and some of the older docs like American Hardcore and what's it, The Decline of Western Civilization, stuff like that. And as me and a buddy were getting into film stuff, we're trying to think about something to make for like a short, and I was like, no one ever talks about like back 90s kind of punk rock and documentaries. It's all the documentaries are like when the 80s, when the old men like Scott were hanging out and everyone, it was really violent. So violent. What's with your generation being so violent at punk rock shows? Not you individually, but there was a lot of violence in the 80s, and I think that
it was horrible.
All the documentaries are like how like you go to a punk show, you get your head bashed in, and that just was not my experience. I had a very like it's the after effects of that, the people who the no effects of that, if you will.
I think
it was not. Sorry for that.
I think Fugazi helped with that.
Say again, Scott.
I said I think Fugazi helped.
Yeah.
With that.
I mean, I will say that.
Yeah, I think there was a.
Oh, I was just gonna say I was at an American Nightmare show, like probably right before shutdown, and I got spin kicked in the face, almost got knocked out. So it's still definitely that violent.
Yeah, I mean,
but like the Fat Wreck kind of the fat. Oh, go ahead, Scott. Go, Scott.
It really doesn't matter. Your story's way better. Go ahead.
Oh no, what happened for you? I've said this shit so many times. Oh man, that's why I wanted to talk with you guys, because I want to get like hear about. I'm even connecting things right now. That's right. That's that kind of thing that like No Effects and all those bands were kind of. That's what they grew up in, and like the kind of punk rock they made was almost like a reaction to that. Like we don't want to like. I mean, there's elements of sexism, but it wasn't the same of like assaulting women or like beating, just being like super scumbag drug addicts a lot of times. Not everybody, obviously, but there's just that element. And I feel like they kept the drugs, but they got rid of the violence.
Yeah,
because they definitely have the drugs. Puppets doing drugs. Because the amount of how drugs are kind of like integral to that, but I said I was.
Were those real drugs used on the puppets? Because that's like a waste of good.
No, of course not. For legal liability reasons, I wouldn't even know how to get those kind of drugs.
Just thought I'd throw it out.
I do.
It's movie magic.
Right. Okay.
There's no drugs in movies. No. Entertainment, people doing drugs in entertainment. I can't. What kind of world would we live in? But yeah, like so, like that. It was really just a kind of my reaction to like I liked seeing those documentaries, and I just never saw that a certain kind of punk rock that I had grown up with was not represented. It just not, and I think that's, if anything, I think that's why the movie probably resonated with a certain group of people who had not seen that. I got a lot of emails of people being thank you, and I never get to see, the kind of our favorite bands on the screen. It's usually like, so yeah, I mean, it was, and there's so much, to you make a documentary, you find out so many things, and there's so much to discover. And so like being able to, show Erin and her, here's this Fat Records, this kind of this boys club thing, and here behind the scenes is this woman kind of really running the show, like in a very like financial and logistical kind of way, So yeah, that was that sufficient to your question, your grilling? This got you journalism, Chris?
I gotcha. Hey, I didn't ask you about the stilettos, so I feel like you should be happy.
I thought it was.
Yeah. How many of you guys did that? How many of you guys had to get into stilettos into a pool to do your documentary?
I think there's so many.
The Blockbuster doc is definitely the Blockbuster doc. I'm sure they're like, you can't come into the store unless you wear stilettos.
Yeah, dress code.
That's why everything shut up from the waist up. Underneath, everyone had.
Yeah,
documentary yet, so I assume that's all shot from the waist up.
It's actually all shot from the waist down. It's a weird.
That is sexy. That's a new approach. This new approach. Can you tell a story like that? It's like like that's what I'm gonna do in my next doc. It's all feet and legs,
no faces.
And like
Tarantino.
The nervousness. No.
I'll be first in
face. I don't know what the.
Sean.
Yeah, Sean. I don't know if you can hear us.
Oh no.
No, I glitched out. I don't know. Maybe my internet's the worst.
Okay.
You guys are doing so good. I've been so impressed.
I'll be right back.
What was your question there, Chris?
Oh no, that's the stilettos. Here's something I kind of want to throw out to the group. I'm just kind of curious about. When Scott comes back as well, we just let him jump right in. So, like, what would you say? Do you have any of your the DIY scene ethics or skill set that you picked up from going to shows or being a musician? Did you find transferred over when it became to making a movie? Like, was there any crossover? Because I guess what in filmmaking you call it guerrilla filmmaking, but from our world, like I always think of it more like DIY.
Yeah, I still call it DIY. I think it all translates. Like I grew up playing in bands and making our own flyers at Kinko's and going and putting them up and screen printing our own T-shirts and doing all that. And I still, like, to this day, if I get a movie or an order for a Blu-ray on my website, I go to my garage, grab one out, put it in the thing, and put a sticker in there and ship it out myself. It's totally DIY. And the same thing, I don't know how the rest of these guys shot their movies, but a lot of times it was just me setting up a camera, setting up a microphone, setting up a light, and then moving a little bit and driving. We shot the first week of the Scott documentary. I shot it like I was on tour, and we went around Southern California, slept on people's couches and people's floors, and just, it's totally DIY.
That's fucking awesome.
It's exactly the same as, music and movies are not that different.
Okay. I agree with that, like wholeheartedly. I found editing, like if you had been in music, and you've done music editing, like if you've been the concept's the same, and also, and this I talked to John, like we had a podcast episode with John, so I want to get your take on this as well because I think other people would like to hear it. But like as a musician, the way that when I have a scene that's cut, there's a musicality to it, and also like a crescendo, and like there's a I can listen to it, I can watch it like I would listen to a song. I can just watch it over and over again. It's kind of how that things are starting to fall in place, because I can actually like watch it over and over again, like I would a song. And I was like, okay, that song's done. Let me move on to the next one, sort of thing. It's got the same. It's not exactly the same, but it's got that same feeling that I get when I'm writing a song and it's going through that process. The feelings are very similar.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't, like I said before, I don't do music. I think I'm the only one here. But it's not dissimilar from writing, and it's definitely like music in the sense that everyone has their own pacing and their own rhythm that they speak in. And I think a lot about cutting in like an interview with someone in an effective way is about that rhythm and knowing how to make it work within like other people's rhythms. And so that's really how you get to build those sequences out, is like if you have a person that's slow but they get to a really good point, you need to figure out how to like build that moment up, and then you can intersperse, you know, fast talkers and all that stuff in between there and kind of break up the momentum. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I'm sure it's, I feel like songs are just kind of a smaller microcosm. Like I definitely think about that when I listen to songs, or when I listen to albums, especially. Like I'm always fascinated by like tracking and like how you think about ordering all your songs, and where do you need like your emotional breath and your breaks, and then where do you think you can like sustain like a big 7-minute piece and whatever else like that. Like all that stuff is super fascinating to me, and I always end up thinking about it in an editing kind of way.
That's excellent. Hey Scott, in case you missed the question, Scott,
there's a great
Thank you. I had a bathroom break. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no problem. Ed, we were just asking, what DIY scene ethics or skill set would you say that you learned from growing up in the punk scene that kind of transferred over to filmmaking?
That's a really, really good question, and I think
Sorry.
you know, I've thought a lot about this, and I think that having done a fanzine, having started a band, having been a part of a scene that was so supportive of doing it yourself before that became part of the sort of American vernacular, you know, DIY, and just giving you that license and that courage, you know, to do that, I think is really, you know, I'm not sure if I would have. I certainly had the editorial background. I knew how to do that. I knew how to tell a story. I knew how to edit a story, but I didn't know how to shoot one. So I had it I had it up here, and I thought, well, I know the people that could, like the people that I wanted to work with, I knew were very good at what they did. And so I knew between what I was able to bring and what they could bring, it would be like literally like something, you know, that I would have thought about doing 30 years previously, where you just go, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and we're going to start next week. And that's what we did. And, you know, it's not to say I didn't do my research. You know, I mean, I spent every night doing my homework for months and months and months on how to, you know, do a documentary. So it's not to diminish that, but I guess what I'm trying to say, I'm probably not saying it very succinctly, but I think what I'm trying to say is, had I not gone through that period, that really important period of coming of age, of growing up, seeing other people do things that I never thought in a million years I could do, just tackling it head on, just saying, no, we're going to do this. And like, fuck it. Like I'll figure it out. I'll just make it happen. Do the work and make it happen. And that's kind of like my, you know, that's my work. You know, sort of, that's just how I work today. You know, I don't work any differently. And I think so, you know, it served me well. And I think that if I had not had that experience growing up of people patting you on the back and saying, you can do this, you got this. Like, you don't like, yeah. And I'd say, yeah, but I've never done it before. And then they'd sort of give you the license to say, it doesn't matter whether you've done it before, you can do this. And so I kind of, if I hadn't had that growing up, I'm not sure, what I'd be doing right now. But I can say that having that kind of support and that pat on the back and that sort of, kind of, you've got this. I don't think I could do what I'm doing right now at all. So I think that's, and I don't think that's that unusual of a story. I think anyone on this panel could probably say the same thing. It may not be the same sort of story, but I think knowing punk rock, being a part of it, once you understood it, because it takes a little bit. Like, you're like, what is this all about? And then once you figure it out, you go, oh, okay, I get it. It's about like throwing out the old stuff, creating your own thing, and moving forward and doing the work. And I was lucky enough to learn that at a really early age.
I'll say this: I have a
thing to
kind of tack on to that. Well, it's a visual. I think it's a good visual. It's like I've like, sir, please, sir. I think I've been asked. I think most interviews they're like, how do you make a movie? Like, how does somebody make a movie? Or how did you do it? And I was like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think I don't know if this is the experience everyone else has had, but I just was solving every problem that I needed to solve as I went along. And then at some point it was like, oh, okay, we made it through. And then, I mean, and you guys know with distribution, like that's a whole nother bag can of worms or whatever. So like you have to start solving those problems, especially when you're doing your first movie. And like, there's just so many problems you have to solve. Like, it's almost impossible to even remember. It's like driving to work or something. Like you had to make all those decisions, but you don't remember each little one. You're just like, where I needed to go, because if there was a pile of shit in the road, I went around it, and then this road's blocked off. Let me go down this way. Oh, going off road now. Okay. This is metaphor working for you guys.
No.
Yeah. That's definitely my experience.
But honestly, I really had that thought when I finished a Fat Wreck and I was there. I was like, I don't know how I just did that. Like, I don't even know. Like, do I remember the skills that I developed when I knew some of them I did, but others I'm like, I'm just gonna have to come up to that problem again and probably figure out another way to solve it, because there's no way I remember. I also remember one other thing. I was thinking about this other day because I'm deep in editing on a couple other projects, and I'm finally at that stage where it's like I'm spending hours and hours editing, and I really love that stage. It's hard to get there, and it's also hard to have the space to do it, if that makes sense. But man, it's so like rewarding. It's how do you say, like, it's rewarding, but you're making like 10,000 decisions when you make a movie, because like you're deciding all the top level stuff like the story, but then all of a sudden you're like, let me move this over 2 frames. Okay, no, back 2 frames. Oh, that music cue needs just just a second longer. And so like when you've gone through it, you've made like 10 decisions at least, I have to imagine, on a movie like that or more. It's a lot of shit. So I mean, anyway, I don't know where I'm going with that. It's just making movies is hard.
Yeah, you all make a boatload of decisions. Just a reminder for anyone in the chat, if you have any questions, we just start sending your way. And Chris Ball, if you see a good one, bring it to the screen. And until then, I'll just keep chatting myself. I'll keep yabbing until we get to the end of it. So if anyone listening, give us some good questions for these folks. Here's your chance. And while we wait on that, so like, with we're talking about this the DIY scene, that do it yourself, which really means do it together. This question for all of you, actually, how did you build your coalition of like those who were willing to help you? Scott, you want to start us off?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to have a relationship with my pal Jim Saw, who's a phenomenal documentary photographer, and I just pitched the idea to him, and it took a little convincing, and then we had some conversations and many cocktails, and we figured it out, and it worked really. He's a great guy, and we worked it out together. It wasn't easy. It wasn't Jim's fault. It just wasn't. As you know, I mean, doing one of these things is very challenging, and it's very, you get, you don't see a lot of it coming. You think, oh, okay, I got this whole chapter done, and then someone calls you and says, yeah, no, you can't use that footage, and you got to go, okay. But I'd done I hate to keep coming back to this, but I'd done a magazine and fanzines and all that, all of which
you did a magazine.
All of which.
Why don't you tell us? Mention it.
I haven't mentioned it yet. So all of which mean that.
You mentioned it one time. I think one time. I think at least one time.
Okay.
At least twice, maybe. Okay, I'll let you talk. I'm sorry.
Okay, fuck off. Excuse me. So, but I think that a lot of, if I hadn't had that, like, I think doing a doc would be harder for me because I got used to things changing on a dime. Like, boom, like, oh, can't use that photograph? Shit. I got to find another photograph. Oh, that half-page ad fell out? Okay, now we got to fill this space. So all those problems that you have when you're doing a publication aren't all that dissimilar from when you're doing a documentary because, you run into the same kind of problems. I mean, we all know, right? Like, you've got this great photo that you want to use, and then all of a sudden, either someone comes, you go to the photographer and you say, hey, I'd like to use this photo. And then they say, sure, you can use it for $1,000. And you go, I can't afford that. And then they say, well, fuck off. So, or, you want to use a piece of music and it's just too expensive. So you're constantly having to always have plan Bs, plan Cs, and, plan Ds. So all of that is DIY. All of that is all stuff that you learn.
But I also think that.
Yes.
I was going to say, I agree that those problems, by having to solve those problems, sometimes you have to come up with creative solutions.
Yeah.
So it ends up, you end up doing something that maybe you wouldn't.
That's right.
Puppets, for instance.
Sometimes they're better than the ones you had before,
Mm-hmm. John, do you have any examples of that when you're making the Anti-Flag documentary?
Not a ton, just because we kind of restricted it to our score and like Anti-Flag's music. There's only one opportunity where we could have had like music we would have had to pay a bunch of money for, and that's Rage Against the Machine. But I felt like using the music video would have been fine enough, and then that falls under fair use. So I guess that counts as like a workaround. But it was never a thing that I was like married to as an idea, was like have that music come in, because I think they just hear it in their head. I mean, that like Bulls on Parade is such a ubiquitous song that I think that you can kind of fill in the gap mentally.
Yeah. And Taylor, what about you? I'm gonna get.
And it's not even about it's something that doesn't like people get it. People are gonna see Tom Morello. People are gonna see Tom Morello and get it. It's not because it's not a Rage Against the Machine documentary. If you're doing a Rage Against the Machine documentary and you couldn't get the songs, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, yeah.
But working with the band, I mean, your biggest hurdle is getting those songs licensed, and since it's the band, I'm doing that one with Wilhelm guys, and almost all the music we're using is Wilhelm's versions or stuff like that. So like, oh my god, I don't have to worry about any of that, and almost all the photographs and stuff we're using they shot. So which is a completely different thing with the Fat Wreck doc. But Taylor, you probably had to clear a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it sucks. That's exactly what you're talking about. I would get married to something and be like, oh, I love this sequence with this song or this photo, and then be depressed for a week when I had to change it out, or our Kickstarter did pretty well, so I did pay the photographers what they asked, and I still don't think it was worth it, but here we are.
Yeah, the music. Someone told me.
What?
Oh, go ahead, Scott.
Oh, okay. I didn't mean to.
I was gonna say. I was sorry. I was gonna say. We asked for Beat on the Back. We had a small song that underneath that we used because Mike talked about the Ramones, and I reached out to see how much it would be, and they were like, they said only $2,000, which is an insanely cheap.
It's a great deal.
Amount of money for
very good.
Such a big song. But I said, sorry, no, I'm not gonna pay for that. I cut it out. It was underneath something. It didn't even play a pro. It didn't.
Sure,
you got the idea. It wasn't needed. So I was like, I'm not $2,000. I mean, oh my god, $2,000. That's how much the puppets cost. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, the music publishing. I think with the current film that I just finished, which is a documentary about Cream magazine, which if you're not familiar with, really its heyday was in the 1970s, and they were number 2 to Rolling Stone in terms of sales and newsstand and everything else. But to me personally, they established and created really kind of a baseline for how music criticism should be written. So you're talking about Lester Bangs, you're talking about Nick Tosches, you're talking about Richard Meltzer, Greil Marcus, you name it. And so, we, the music that we chose, the film starts with an Iggy song because I knew it's a film. The magazine is based in Detroit. Okay. And it begins in the late 1960s, and you cannot, or at least in my mind, you cannot have a film like this that starts around that and not have an Iggy Pop song at some point in the film. And that song cost us more than my first car.
How much was your first car?
Well, first car was like $300, but still.
It cost that song cost you $300. I can't believe that they ripped you off, man.
No, it was considerably more than that. But sometimes you just have to. You just got to bite the bullet and just go. So yeah. I had all these songs. I had Explosions in the Sky. I had like my perfect soundtrack. And, I think it was Taylor that said, you can't. Someone told me very early on, don't get too married to anything. And I think this was actually with Salad Days, I think. Yeah. You know, any scene, any music, any whatever. And so I never forgot that. And there's one scene in the film that if you saw it originally, it had explosions in the sky. And when I watched that scene every single fucking time, I got goosebumps. And we had to replace it. But it turned out fine. It's okay. It's all good. But, you know, I think if there's anything I can say, not that anyone's asking, but if there's anything I can say is to try not to get too attached to any one particular scene or song, or because anything can happen, you know?
Yeah, understandable.
People can I think that killing your darlings, man, you got to be ready to do it, even if it's not something you can't get access to, if it doesn't serve the story, or if it doesn't, you know, if it just doesn't your flow of the film, because something you can love and just really is a cool thing. You can feel it sometimes when it just fucks up the flow of the movie. You feel like all of a sudden you just feel it. It's like, oh, this is dragging. We had a little bit of a, you know, in the Fat Wreck doc. We have that animated sequence, and when I had it made, hand drawn, I was like, I'll do 45 seconds. And we got into it. One of the guys who were editing with, they were like, it's too long. We got to cut it. I'm like, I'm not cutting that. It's not cutting it. And we didn't cut it. It's 45 seconds. And it's because the rest of the movie is so everyone talking all the time. And it's a lot of like fast sequences. It's like this moment where you just get to go for a ride, and the whole idea is supposed to be a trip sequence. So I wanted people to be, you know, like all of a sudden the movie just takes this angle, and you're like, where are we going? Where are we going? Where are we going? And you're just like, and it's so long that you're gonna have to sit in it for a minute. The theater, the sex, and because it's got like really cool sound design that takes pieces from early in the movie and it stretches them out and slows them, and then it comes back, and all of a sudden you're back in the store and you're moving again. And I mean, the thing, the reaction I've gotten from everybody, almost everybody's like, oh, it's, even the people who are against 45 seconds, they came back and they're like, no, you know, but you know, I did a version where I cut it down. I was like, no, each one of those frames was hand drawn. I think it's like 16 frames a second, 45 seconds. That's a lot of drawing.
Yeah, that is.
Hell yeah.
I think I know that scene too, by the way. But yeah,
that's it. So, in the interest of time, we're going to move into our Q&A section of the event this evening.
Ska sucks.
Wow. So far, John, you haven't flicked anyone off yet, so we got to find a way to.
That's real.
Taylor,
like
Taylor, you have to know. That was me. I made that.
I know.
That's because I want to take you down a peg because you're such a better filmmaker than me. I'm like, I gotta
talk about
just,
songs.
You know, I gotta go
have in my movie. That is one of the songs we could not get.
They wouldn't give it to you?
No, you made that connection, and they were like, nah, unless it was for a lot of money. So you know,
that's right.
Every once in a while, the punk rockers are kind of the assholes.
I believe that. Let's pull up some Q&A from the audience.
All right.
Oh, Sonetta is Q&A. How did y'all reach out to approach all the artists? This is for everyone. Shout out to Sonetta. We actually met. There's a wonderful Facebook group called Friends of Streetlight Manifesto, and it is the most wonderful group of people that it's the rare time that Facebook is actually nice. So I recommend you all join it, and I know her and I are actually going to be working on a project coming up pretty soon. So Taylor, you're on the screen. How about this? We'll start with Taylor.
I reached out to artists a million different ways. Some people I still had connections to from the old days, but it was emails to managers and Facebook messages. And actually, I approached Tom from Streetlight Manifesto backstage at one of his shows, and he was like, "I don't do documentaries. I don't do interviews." Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, but no, for the most part, it was cold calls. And then when we would wrap up an interview, you'd be packing up and you'd say, oh, thank you so much, person from some band, for doing this interview. Do you know anybody else that we should get in touch with? And they'd be like, sure. Yeah. Let me connect you to my friend from this band. And I had them, it would be like, here's this famous person's phone number, but you can't tell them where you got it. And I'm like, well, then I can't use the phone number. What am I going to, because the first question is, how'd you get this number? But it was a lot of word of mouth and a lot of just cold calling and hoping people wanted to be in a movie. And for the most part, some people didn't, and that's fine.
Oh, awesome. Let's jump to you, Jon. Same question.
So I mean, we were initially offered the opportunity to do this. I mean, if we wanted to turn it into something, and once I decided that it was worth doing, it was something I was really interested in doing, specifically because of the political angle. We had to do a whole proposal. I wanted to make sure that we were top-notch professional when we were talking to Anti-Flag about it, considering it's making the permanent record of their career on video, and they were down. And so, I mean, it really wasn't hard to get the interviews. I mean, they basically just reached out feelers to anyone they thought would be interested, and then we did the interviews that we thought would be the most rewarding, have the most overlap or name value, or the best spoken people. And so it was pretty smooth. It was just more a matter of everyone in our crew has a full-time job, and so it was a lot of just shooting on nights and weekends, a lot of late night drives to get to places, and mostly just kind of waiting around until people came within a 6 hour radius.
Damn. Scott, same question.
With me, I sort of, it was a little bit of a different approach. I would just send cash. and hope for the best. And
How did Ian respond to that?
Oh,
positively?
Oh no.
I know he loves a good bribe.
No, I'm kidding. But no. I basically just reached out, just like everyone else on this panel, and said, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Love to have you be a part of it. And if you want to know more, let's get on the phone. So there's a lot of, some of them were just like, sure, yeah, let's do it, whatever, show up at this time and we'll do it. And others wanted to know more, which I understood. And we just talked, and, we just communicated, and I just told them what I was looking for. And I don't know if it was my pitch. I don't know what it was, but they always tell you to come up with the 30-second pitch. I think mine was more like 30 minutes, but I think that we were able to, I guess in the case of Salad Days, it was a lot easier. In the case of Cream, these are people that I didn't know. I didn't have personal relationships with Alice Cooper or with Gene Simmons or Kirk Hammett or whoever, or Michael Stipe, but it all apply. I mean, it's all the same. It's you just, you basically just have to say here's what I want to do, and be as honest and transparent as you can be, and hope that they come on board. So.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Hey, Shaun, same question.
I'd say you have to have the audacity to reach out to people, but most people, if you're polite and you're kind, and it's something that you can make super easy for them to do, they'll do it. I mean, some people are more helpful than others, but and it also depends on who you get. I always see it as a little bit of a ladder. You get each rung. So if you get these two people in your movie, and then you go to this third person who knows the two people or is either good friends with them, they're like, oh yeah, of course. Or if it's somebody that they highly respect and they would like to be in a movie with that person,
Yeah. That happened to us
on
a
the
lot.
Pod Doc. That's helped a lot. Once we got Ira Glass, a lot of people, were talking to us. With the Fat Rec Doc. Once we got Mike, I mean, everyone would talk to us because if Fat Mike is doing it, Which I had a unique situation. Earlier I mentioned that I had done that recording with Joey Cape, and the story goes, I get an email. This is about a year or two after we had done the recording, and there was some back and forth with the email because mixing notes and things like that. But we didn't have like a deep friendship or anything. He was just he was a cool guy. We recorded a thing. We had worked together on this thing. It was great. But 2 years later, I get an email that out of the blue that's like, "Hey, do you want to play guitar for Lagwagon?" And it wasn't meant for me. It was meant for a different Shaun, the Shaun that used to play with them. And so I emailed back. I emailed back right away, and hey, Joey, I'd love to play guitar for you guys, but I don't think it's meant for me. But the thing about the email is that it was a Me First and the Gimme Gimmes thread. So it had everybody's email on it. It had Fat Mike's email. It had Chris Shiflett from the Foo Fighters. It had, all the rest of the guys. And I played in a band and had a studio. And I think a less disciplined person or maybe an idiot would email like, "Hey, Fat Mike, sign my band." I did not do that. I just didn't think that was kosher, especially how I got it. And I kind of felt entrusted with it in a way because it had mistakenly been given to me. But the people who sent it to me sent it, because I was in somebody that he would trust, if that would make sense, hopefully.
Absolutely.
But as I decided to do the Fat Wreck doc, that which was kind of independent of all that, I just had the idea to do it. And because I had known Joey, I figured, well, I'll eventually reach out to Joey. But before I even before I reached out to Joey, I just had started making the movie because it was just going to be like a 20-minute short kind of thing. It wasn't going to be a big feature. And what I did was I went to Las Vegas. I did some filming. My initial interviews were all just reaching out on Twitter. I just went to their Twitter, people who were at the Punk Rock Bowling, saw comedians were there and some people. I was like, "Hey, I'm working on this Punk Fat Records thing. Would you do an interview?" And I think I had just set up the Twitter and it got shut down. I don't even know why, because I didn't add that many people, but it shut down. So I only got to send out like those 2 or 3 tweets. But from that, Joe Sib, I'm gonna go to Southern California. You know the song. Sure. He agreed to do one. So there's somebody who is somebody in that world who's agreed to do it. And so that happened. So I take that, I put a trailer together, a little teaser, which you guys can see on the Fat Wreck, the fatrec.com. We have all our early stuff, and the first teaser's there. And I put it together, and I'm coming back from Las Vegas, and I'm the marketing director of this talent development school. And we were doing an event. We were flying in all these record producers to judge these like teeny bopper kids. So I fly back from Las Vegas, having gotten those interviews, and I look on the list of people that I got to pick up from the airport, and because I'm running the show there, and one of them is Ryan Green, which I had completely glossed over when I was putting together the event, and I just happened to be like Ryan Green. He did, for those who've seen the movie and those who know Fat Records, Ryan Green was co-owned a studio with Fat Mike. He produced and recorded all the first Fat Records albums.
Sure, yeah.
I was
awesome, man.
So the timing was, that's kismet. There's not, like that is so, there's other ways the movie could have got made.
Yeah,
but
of course.
How crazy is that? It's just insane. It's utterly insane.
That's
To make a long story longer, that happened. So I have this really great trailer. I got Ryan Green, this guy who was actually made Fat Records, a couple guys from California. I put the teaser out. But before I do, I'm like, I should probably say something to Fat Records about this. Because at this point, I had not talked to anybody. I just started shooting, started making it. I didn't expect it to be anything significant. But after I put together the first teaser, I was like, man, this is a good reason to use that email. Now I'll reach out to Fat Mike. Because this is a reason to use that email. Sure. Doesn't matter where I got the email at this point. If I'm reaching out about a documentary and I have something shot for it, this is the time. If I'm going to use it, this is the time to pull the trigger. And I did. I sent it to him.
Yeah,
I was like, hey, I'm
that's
putting
very
this out
punk rock.
tomorrow. But I don't think I was asking permission. I was just like, hey, I'm putting this out tomorrow. I thought you should see it.
Excellent.
And he's like, looks cool. He's like a email back from Mike, looks cool. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward. And there's a lot more stuff that happened. It's not exactly how things played out, but just that initial thing, I was like, the movie wanted to exist. Like those things, you know what I mean? If that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if Mike would have shut it down, it would have been over, you know? So anyway, that's my little tale.
Oh, thank you, Shaun. So just I actually want to ask this to all of you guys, just for the interest of time, because I know we're kind of running a little bit over. We have some more Q&A in the audience, but we can also wrap it up. I just know if anyone has, do we have enough time to do at least one more?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much. I have nothing else to be doing, so
fuck you, Chris. I gotta go, man. I don't have time to stay here and chat with these punk rock doc filmmakers.
I know we got at least
important
3
people to
Q&A,
talk to.
So balls,
like my
give us a good one. Do any of you filmmakers have juicy stories of stuff that was too risque to put in your documentaries? Great question.
Great question.
Thank you, Carrie.
That's my favorite question so
far. Supposed to go first.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer it, but it's a really great question.
Yeah. Man, if I could answer that question, it would be a great answer.
Yeah, that was a good question. So John, I'm sure you probably no juice.
Yeah, honestly, no, not really. I mean, it would be, with Antiflag, it's kind of, you see what you get, you know.
Though, is it the Ska guys, Taylor, or the Blockbuster people? Where there's some fun shit in there you can tell us?
I mean, there were a lot of people in both movies that as soon as the camera stopped would say, yeah, but the real story is blah, 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 blah. And
right.
I don't remember it because I just remember the stories that I watched 100 times during editing.
Right.
And B, they told me not to tell you, so this is on the internet. What do you?
Yeah.
I want to make more movies in the future. You got to keep that trust.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and for me, you're talking, you may or may not be familiar with Cream Magazine, but they were really the sort of sex, drugs, rock and roll. It was like, imagine like National Lampoon mixed with Rolling Stone and with a little bit of Mad Magazine and cocaine. So that was Cream. So were there juicy stories? Yes. We included some in the film. Some I will take to my grave. But they were very. You have to watch the film, and there are a lot of them in the film. But you have to remember these. I'll keep it short. This was a magazine where the staff lived together 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in a commune. And there were men and women living together, creating a magazine every month. So I'll leave the rest to your imagination.
Some children were probably born.
I'll tell you this: I have audio because we had Mike lapped up, and there's a point where he goes to the bathroom, and then you hear him go to the bathroom, then you hear him, it's not a shocking revelation, but he was doing some cocaine. Well, at least the sound. If he might have been fucking with us, you never know. You know what I mean? But he definitely went down there, and we heard all the noise because we're all hooked up. He's like, doo, 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 doo. And that's recorded, so I have that recorded. But that's it didn't make any sense to put it in the movie, so it's not something I would have put in the movie. But it's it's a funny. We kind of did, Oh man, we should have used that real sound. Damn it! No, because it was in a bathroom, so it wouldn't have sounded right for the scene. Like but yeah, that's a good answer to that question, though, right?
Oh, Carrie, thank you so much for that question. That was wonderful.
I think
Ball, we got anyone else? Any other questions in there, Chris Ball?
Hey,
I got one more. I think we got one more question.
My buddy Richard Gill. Richard.
Oh, hey, Richard, thank you so much for everyone. How important is it for you for the process to see your film with an audience? Do you gauge festival or early screening reactions for final editing, or do you ignore all that and just make the film you want to see? So I think Richard should be hosting this next, right? Because damn, that's a good question. John,
we should talk to him. We should reach out. We should reach out. Reach out. Maybe he'll co-host. Maybe he'll co-host one with us.
Yeah.
Did I just get fired?
Oh, hey. So I'll go first, and I'll so that other people can talk. I was gonna say, like, we did for our. I totally believe in test screenings. I think it's good to test screening with people who kind of know the material, and then test screening with people who like have absolutely no connection with the material to make sure and getting the feedback about whether or not scenes are working and everything's understood, and it because you can also tell when there's an energy in the room when things are working, and you can feel the lulls. You can feel it's not something you can put your finger on, but I think I'm all about knowing people and just verifying that they're getting what I'm wanting to convey.
No, yeah, I'm with you, Sean. I mean, I think I've done enough of these things where they're not like, official sort of like test screenings, but they are early screenings where I'm just getting a sense of like what works, what I might think is funny. Does anyone else think is funny? Or what I think is dramatic. Does anyone else? It's bad if you think something's dramatic and people are laughing. You just have to go, oh, okay. So no, I find them invaluable, and Richard, I think even after, well, I wasn't there, unfortunately. I had to rush home, but I think even after the version that I gave Sound Unseen, we were editing way like up and literally until the last day before we gave it to our distributor, and a lot of that was based on audience feedback, and so no, I find it very useful.
Part of the process. It's just part of the process.
Exactly.
For me.
Yeah.
What about you, John?
I think it's super important. I hate watching stuff with people. Like, it makes me nauseous. I have bad anxiety to begin with.
I have to go in the bathroom and cry. So.
Yeah. Honestly, that's kind of like how I feel. So I end up just like slumping in my seat. Yeah. But that said, no, I think it's super important. And I'm definitely about like really harsh feedback. Like, give me like point by point like your emotional reaction to things. Like, I love that kind of thing. I just hate like experiencing it with people.
It's tough.
Yeah. I would rather get like a detached like laundry list of notes that's like the size of a book than like sit there with it. But I think both are important, because I think that there are things you can pick up by looking at people or just feeling like their body posture change or anything like that.
Yeah, that's what helps me is I scan the audience and I watch the body language and I go, okay, yeah, that one bombed. Mm-hmm. Or the funny thing is, and I don't know if this has happened to you guys, but sometimes to think that the stuff you're like, well, I think it's funny, but I don't know. The stuff the audience reacts great to it. So to me, it's watching the physical reaction, and I'm not sure how I would do if I got 10 pages worth of notes. I'd probably curl up in a fetal position, somewhere. But
I'm starting to sense a theme here with you, Scott. Are you all right, buddy?
No, I'm good, man. You know what?
Are movies abusing you? Are you being abused? Is it an abusive partner?
No, you know what? I only make I've made 2 films in 8 years, so that's not bad. I curl in a fetal position, cry. And it's only once every 4 years. That's not bad, right?
If you're not crawling in a fetal position and crying, are you really making a movie?
No.
Or
I don't think you are. I remember crying in the shower. Yeah,
you're making.
We had to make it to the we did a test screening in San Francisco because of the Fat 25, and so we had to kind of like I was editing at truck stops. and like trying to render on the way there. I think we had literally if we didn't get the movie rendered in an hour, we weren't gonna get it to the theater and we wouldn't have the test screening. I mean, it was down to the wire like that, and we're editing. I mean, it was just fucking. And then I remember after the edit happened and we got it delivered, I went and took a shower, and I started just fucking crying. I hadn't slept. I had not slept for 3 days. I'd stayed up the entire trip out to California editing along. We would stop, and we stayed at a truck stop for 5 hours so I could edit.
Yep.
Taylor, same question.
I cried like a little baby.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, I did not cry like you.
Is that because it's about Scott?
Because it's about Scott. It's all happy.
No. Either I made that up, so it's all Richard. I mean, it's all Shaun.
Sean.
Yeah. Sorry.
No,
I'm not making that up. I had a breakdown, but I hadn't slept for 3 days, so that had a lot to do with it.
No, I did. I had 47 of them. So yeah.
Now I think seeing a movie with an audience is huge. It's for me, like I didn't really do test screenings. I did all that through email and got the 10 pages of notes. But theaters and film festivals and seeing it with audiences is by far the best part. And I can't sit and watch the movie either. I'll pace around and just watch people. But the docs I've done, I try to make them funny. You know, I like comedy more than tragedy. So I do put a lot of jokes in. And so that feeling you get in a crowded theater when everybody laughs at one of your dumb jokes.
That's the best.
I love it.
That's like the highest. That's like playing a show. You know,
it is. It's so like playing a show.
And
it's like a detached playing a show because you're not playing the show. You're like detached from watching you play.
Yeah.
It's such a cool experience.
And
it's a very dance puppets kind of feeling too.
Right. But the huge bummer of 2020,
you're laughing, you're like, ha.
John and I are putting out, John and Scott and I, right? I don't know if anybody's doing theaters this year, but putting movies out right now sucks.
We've done some theater. We've done a fair amount of theaters.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been tough. I mean, it's certainly not what we had planned. And, we had planned over 200 theaters.
Yeah.
So it was a real
huge bummer. We got to do a couple of drive-ins, and it's cool, but it's totally different. You can't hear people laughing. All you get is like some flashing lights and honking horns at the end, and it's like, I guess they liked it. I don't know.
Right.
But this COVID thing and trying to be an independent filmmaker, it's hard and it's worse and it's dumber.
Oh.
I don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why we ended up we're just self-releasing ours. And we felt like that was the best way to go because there aren't a lot of distribution companies trying to buy a new slate of films when they're just sitting on this year's roster that they didn't put out. And then at the same time, I mean, I'm sure you guys know the reality of you never know what you're going to get with the distribution company. I mean, a lot of times you're not ever going to see money from that, especially if they don't pay you up front. And so to make this thing valuable, I felt just try to get the most word of mouth we can, put it out direct, and make as much as we can on it to try and slingshot into another project once we're able to film again more easily.
I think that's I'm going to keep my mouth shut on the distribution stuff. I think what you just said is exactly the way to do it. And I think you'll actually, I could be wrong, but I think you'll actually be shocked at how well you do.
Yeah. I mean,
man.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to tell, because right now we're just doing the premiere. And it's doing pretty well ticket sales wise, but I don't know what the longevity of this is going to be. I think that it was very important to me to get this out before the election.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, because of how hyper political everything is. But I think this election.
I voted last year, so
oh my god. It's just I saw a tweet earlier today, and I thought it just nailed it. It was just fuck you 2020 for having a 3-act structure.
Plot twist after plot twist.
Yeah, as of last night at 2 a.m.
Dude,
just oh god,
dude.
wait.
Dude, there's so many plot twists. There's so many plot twists in 2020. It's like the show got canceled. You know, like the end of a series when they know they got canceled, they just throw everything at the wall.
Just Ryan
That's
Murphy
what
putting a
2020
bunch
is.
of guest appearances on. Yeah.
Dude, Rick Moranis got randomly attacked. Rick Moranis. What is going on?
Gonna remember that tomorrow.
He just disappeared for 20 years, and this is what he gets.
He comes out and he gets punched in the face. Be like, oh man.
So which one of you is
I'm glad that stayed apolitical though. We still stayed apolitical. We didn't mention any particular people except Rick Moranis. That's great.
Which one of you is going to make the Rick Moranis documentary? Yeah, definitely Taylor, right? We all looked at you, Taylor. Like, yep, that tracks. Oh, everyone, I can't thank you enough for doing this evening. So we're going to kind of get to the wrapping up of it. I thank you for anyone who's joining. Sorry we couldn't get to all your questions. It sure feels like the future is going to be doing more of these types of things for independent filmmakers. So let's all try to support them. I know should definitely be there tonight for John's.
Yeah, tomorrow. Go to John's tomorrow.
Yes,
Tomorrow.
Way to go, John.
Premiere.
Thank you.
You know, I think this is a proof that, you know, you really can't just do, like, you know, no one does anything alone, and we don't have our physical scenes like we used to, but the digital ones are, you know, it's not as good, but this is still, it still feels really special. So before we wrap it up, let's go
I was gonna say,
around
I don't think I would have been able to connect with all these guys like this. I don't know if we would have made the time, and so I appreciate you and your whole team. Especially Mr. Chris Ball behind the scenes there. He's been doing all the switching and playing the videos, and like I get a chance to. So I don't know if I would have got a chance to hang out with these guys like this. So, he's there. There he is. Woo!
There's Chris Ball, everyone.
See Ball. But so I want to thank the team for doing this, and also thanking all the filmmakers, my buddies, for hanging out. I'm glad we got to do this, and this is the second time I got to spend some time with Jon, so I'm really stoked about that. So, anyway, sorry I didn't mean to take it.
No,
further,
Shaun, I was
going
to ask everyone to kind of wrap up. Where can people find you online, and more importantly, what's going on for the future? What are your next projects? Like, where can people interact with you? And then we'll go around, and also just anyone in the chat as well. Shaun actually is the brainchild behind this, who put this together. So, hey, thank you, Shaun. We want to do this again. So let us know who you want to hear. Punk rock documentaries, non-punk rock documentaries. Like, let's do some roundtables, people. We're here. And we got a podcast over at Let's Chat if any of you guests are looking to talk in more depth. So I'm sure we'll all be in touch at some point. But yeah, so Shaun, hit us up.
Okay, I am Open Ended Films. That's the website, the Twitter, the Instagram, all that stuff. I'm working on a podcast documentary that has Ira Glass and Roman Mars, Avery Trufelman, Kevin Smith is in it too. That's hopefully sometime next year it'll be coming out. We're deep in post. I've edited together a few scenes together, and I'm really excited about it. So yeah, also I have a series and a film and a series called Lifer. One's a feature-length film, and then we've adapted parts of it that didn't make it into the film into a 5-part series about. It's actually like in Jon's movie. He spoiler alert. He goes to the family's homes and kind of talks to the parents, and we kind of do that with the Lifer doc. But it's all that. It's really just all the parents and the families and all the support systems. So yeah, Lifer and Age of Audio, Open-Ended Films. Booyah.
Excellent. Scott, let's go next. Where can people find you online? What are your future projects?
Well, I've got my latest film, which is called Cream, America's Only Rock and Roll Magazine, is now streaming on Amazon, iTunes, Fandango, you name it. And we're at currently 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nice.
98% audience response on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm really excited about that. We've gotten some amazing press. Tomorrow I'll be on CBS Saturday morning talking about the film with Alice Cooper. So
holy shit! Sorry.
That's sweet, man.
Slumming it with us first, huh?
Thanks for stepping down to our level.
So that'll be that's the next thing, and then or that's the current thing, and then I'm working on sort of. I was just asked, and I started to work on it, but then it fell apart because of one of the people bailed because of COVID. But I was asked to do a treatment for a Husker Du documentary.
Ooh.
So I've been working on that, as well as another documentary on not so much DOA. DOA were, punk band. Sean helped me with this. DOA is a, iconic punk band from Vancouver, influenced everybody from 1980 on. But it's more about the singer of DOA, Joe Keithley, who's now a council member in Vancouver.
Oh, the Green Party, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
An elected Green Party member. So the film will follow him as he goes through the next election, win or lose. So it'll be sort of a fly on the wall kind of documentary, which is what I've always wanted to make. And then I've got another fiction movie that I'll be producing in the coming weeks. I'll start working on that in the coming weeks, and then I need to take a vacation for a year, and then where I'm at. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. I'm sure you'll do that.
Well, I'll try.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Taylor, where can people find you online, and what do you got in the works? I know you have the last Blockbuster is your next as well, but what else you got going on?
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people like to say lackluster.
Did I say that?
As an accidental abbreviation, but I'm going to stick with it. It's a lackluster documentary. No, so the Ska movie, we're at Ska Movie on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and skamovie.com. It's on Amazon Prime.
Sure.
And then the last Blockbuster is kind of coming out now. We're at the Lemley Theater virtually. We're doing some drive-ins, and then it hits digital December 15th.
Cool.
Blu-rays and DVDs are available for pre-order at benblockbuster.com. It's a Blockbuster exclusive DVD. It's the first one since 2010.
Woo! Whoa, you did that.
That's so cool.
That's a fun documentary about Blockbuster Video, and it's got also Kevin Smith in it, like Sean and a bunch of other great comedians and actors and whatnot.
Passing around Kevin Smith like he's a dirty whore.
He likes movies.
He's got a dirty mouth. He'll put his mouth on any documentary.
Yeah. He kind of will. I'm popmotionpictures.com. At Popmotion Pictures is my company. And then I think I've got a script I'm working on of a 80s retro sci-fi comedy. We'll see if that gets made. It's been delayed because of COVID. So pretty much just hoping people watch the last Blockbuster.
Call me.
Which they will.
Call me, Jim. I'm going to call Scott. He can help me produce. It's called Space Fever.
If anyone in the audience knows any financiers,
I get 10%. I put this together. House always gets a taste.
Chris, call me.
Any financiers or any people with that dollar, you hit up these gentlemen. And John, besides your premiere tomorrow, what else you got going? I feel so bad asking that. Like, you all put so much work into this. Right? Oh, that's great. What's next? So I do appreciate that you put in a lot of work into your projects, but people want to know what else you're doing because, man, we're all fans. We're fans.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure with these guys too. I mean, I don't like working on one thing at a time. Like I'm always trying to think next step ahead. So our next thing besides this is a documentary called Don't Fall in Love with Yourself. That's about Justin Pearson of The Locust and Dead Cross and Some Girls. Like he's in like a dozen bands. And the San Diego noise scene. So it's all about like the early 2000 eras noise scene that like popped up in San Diego and just kind of like how insane all of it was. And then also just like him as the center of it. And we're trying to develop a couple other projects. Like, we have a lot of feelers out, but it's like nothing else. I'm working on some scripts right now, so we'll just see. I mean, a lot's just going to depend on like how well this anti-flag documentary does, and then we'll kind of know what we can like go to next. Like, what do we have to work with?
Sure. Well, give us your plug one more time for tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night it premieres on Veeps at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we're also doing a Q&A with me and the band afterwards. If you buy a ticket, there are 2 packages. There's a cheaper one that's just the movie and the Q&A, and then the other one includes a signed double-sided poster with both poster designs on it. And then if you can't watch it during its actual premiere hours, it'll stay up there for 48 hours, so you can just kind of watch it at your leisure. And then it'll be available on VOD after that. And then as far as like my contact, you can find all of our stuff at Turnstile Films with a Y, or at Jon Nix Film, JONNIX Film, on everything.
Well, I can't thank you all enough for your time, for all of your hard work. Chris Ball behind the camera, all of our wonderful art. Taylor, you made us a really nice flyer as well.
Yes, thanks,
Benjamin
Taylor.
Design made our flyer. Sean made the trailer. Shout out. So I'm Chris Revill. I host the podcast Let's Chat with Chris Revill. John, your episode will be coming up very shortly. Sean's been out a couple times. Taylor Scott, I'll call you. I'll call you. Find us on the Let's Chat Podcast.net. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Let's Chat Revill. And hey, we did it. So thank you so
guys.
much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good rest of your night.
Much respect to all of you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Ben.
Inshallah.
I appreciate it.
They called here to tell me that you're finally dying through a veil of childish cries.